Welcome to the Dominican Veritas Ministries podcast, The Torchbearer, a gathering place where we explore how the Holy Spirit animates Dominican Catholic education, where we reflect on how we can respond to the signs of our times, and where we are inspired to carry the light of the gospel into our ministries and our daily lives. I'm your host, Nate Friday, and I'm blessed to serve as the Director of Formation for DVM. Throughout this first season, titled Sacred Spaces, we will return again and again to a single guiding question: where is the sacred being revealed in our Dominican ministries today? In this inaugural episode, we begin by listening to the wisdom of those who have spent decades living and serving within Dominican schools. This episode features 3 short interviews with Dominican Sisters of Sinsinawa, Margaret O'Brien, Mary Margaret Murphy, and Kathleen Phelan. Across these conversations, you'll hear stories from classrooms and hallways and school communities, moments where the sacred revealed itself through relationships, learning, and the daily life of a school. You'll also hear the wisdom these sisters have gained after years of ministry, how to recognize sacred moments, and how educators today can continue cultivating spaces where students encounter truth, belonging, and grace. And along the way, you'll hear insights like this from Sister Mary Margaret Murphy.
When you're really tired and exhausted, sit back and think, I'm making a difference. I'm bringing Christ into the classroom and allowing students the time they wouldn't get otherwise. Pause and reflect, and that is so needed.
These voices remind us that sacred spaces are not just places, but they are moments of encounter. So join us as we listen to the wisdom of Sister Mary Margaret, Sister Margaret, and Sister Kathleen, and begin our exploration of how the sacred continues to reveal itself across Dominican ministries today. We hear first from Sister Margaret O'Brien. Thanks for joining us, Sister Margaret.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Well, I thought as a way of introduction, maybe you could share a little bit with our audience. What are some of the schools and communities that you've served in and with?
Okay. Well, I've been at several of them. I started out at St. Sabina's in Chicago. I was there for 7 years. It was a time of a lot of transitions.
Yeah, definitely.
But I loved, taught first grade for 7 years and loved it there. And I've often said I cried when I went because I was raised on a farm in Wisconsin, and I had been in Chicago, but didn't ever spend any time there.
Sure.
So it was a big transition, but I loved it. So I cried when I went, but I cried when I left 7 years later.
Oh, goodness. It must have had quite an impact on you in those first 7 years.
Oh. Yeah, and I still hear from some of those students. I still do. Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And then after that, I went to Portage, and I taught first, second, and third. It was a multi-age grouping. They were trying something new there, and I loved that too. It was a good experience.
In Portage, Wisconsin, right?
Yes.
Is that so for
St. Mary's in Portage?
Oh my goodness! So for listeners not familiar, right? That's kind of the center of the state. So you went from the heart of Chicago,
yes,
to essentially smaller town Wisconsin.
Right.
Okay.
Then after that, I went to Holy Family in Whitefish Bay, and I started in second grade there, and taught second. I don't remember just how many years, a couple years, and then probably a year and a half. And then I moved to sixth grade. So I had decided, I think I had said something to the principal that maybe I would like to move up to another grade level. So I did in the middle of the year, and it was hard.
Oh my goodness.
But I found, I liked it, but I often said after I was done with my elementary experience, if I went back to teaching after administration, I would probably go back to first grade because I loved it. But I never did.
Sister Margaret's ministry took her from the heart of Chicago to the smaller communities of Portage and Janesville, Wisconsin, and on to suburban Milwaukee. After years in K-8 education, Sister Margaret was called to serve for more than 20 years at Edgewood University in undergraduate teacher education, teaching methods classes, and in the supervision of student teachers. Reflecting on these experiences, Sister Margaret shared 2 specific moments of encountering the sacred in her ministry. Well, I mean, you're living quite the itinerant Dominican life. I mean, from,
that's true.
Heart of Chicago, Whitefish Bay, just outside of Milwaukee, small towns in Wisconsin, and then university here in Madison. Yeah. When you think back on all of these school experiences where you served, I'm sure there were many, but maybe a moment or two that was revealed to you where this school or this space was just a holy ground. Our theme this season is a sacred space. Are there any moments that surface when you look back on those?
Well, I looked at that question again, and I thought, at St. Sabina's, when I was there, I remember one of the students who had lived in the projects, and he said to me one day, he said, "Sister, it's really quiet in here, but outside, you can hear the noise." And there was another class having recess outside. He said, "It's just like the projects. It's quiet in here, but you can hear the noise outside." And I will never forget that. Wow. That student made that comment. And it was a holy place, I guess, for him.
Yeah.
But he made it a holy place for me, too.
Yeah, and just kind of speaking to the quietness that he needed, something must have resonated with him. And what age was the student?
First grade.
Oh, first grade. Profound words from, 7-year-old, maybe 6-year-old or something like that.
I don't remember his name. Yeah.
Wow. Oh, that's wonderful. How about any time from later on, in particularly university?
I remember when I was in Portage, it was in Whitefish Bay. I had a prayer service with the students, and I had them all in a circle, and there was a mother that was there that was helping, and I invited her to be a part of the prayer service, and she thanked me so many times for asking her to join that prayer service.
As Sister Margaret reflects on the season-long theme of sacred spaces, she offered 2 powerful statements of advice for all of us to consider as we minister and work with students.
Our motto is at the heart of ministry is at the heart of relationship. And I think that's really what it is. Our ministry is relationship. How can you be a good influence to that person? How can you help them to understand who God is in their life?
Of all the phrases, I mean, we've got Catherine of Siena's got great quotes, and Dominic and Thomas Aquinas, certainly the one that I probably maybe use to a fault often is at the heart of ministry is relationship, or maybe relationship is at the heart of ministry because it's so important, and I think it just brings everything together.
Oh, I know what it was.
Yeah.
A friend of mine said to me as I was going to be principal, she said, "Just remember when you are with the students and the parents that child is the most important part of their life."
These powerful words from Sister Margaret O'Brien offer a strong reminder of the care we are called to give each student we work with as Dominican Catholic school educators. These words also echo into our second interview here in episode 1. Next, the Torchbearer is grateful to welcome Sister Mary Margaret Murphy, a Dominican sister of Sinsinawa, as she reflects on several moving moments during her time in Catholic education, moments that brought prayer and reflection to the forefront of the school community. I thought by way of introduction, Sister, if you could just share maybe some of the schools that you've served in throughout your ministry in Catholic education.
Thank you, Nate. It's good to be here. Yes, I have over 50 years experience in Catholic education. I started out at Queen of Peace High School in Burbank, Illinois, which is unfortunately no longer in existence, but it was an adventure to start a new school. I also have served at Bishop Lynch, which is a Dominican high school in Dallas that was co-sponsored by the Dominican Central Province at that point, and Sinsinawa, and at Trinity High School in River Forest, and most recently at Bethlehem Academy in Faribault. Interspersed there, I also was in the Catholic high schools in Sioux Falls, Sioux City, Bloomington, Illinois, and Omaha.
Oh my goodness. Well, so as we're thinking about sacred spaces and how our hallways, kind of this episode's theme, the hallways is hallowed ground, you've really seen quite a different sets of spaces, from the heart of Chicago at Trinity and Queen of Peace, and Bishop Lynch, one of our Delk schools in Dallas, but then also BA, in Faribault.
In a rural community.
Yeah,
basically, yes. And also, while I was in Omaha, I served in the Archdiocesan office, where we had 80 schools in 19 counties. So I did see a lot of sacred spaces in small rural schools of probably less than 50, up to the city schools where over 1,000 students were. So
goodness,
it's been a blessed event.
In thinking of all of those different spaces, is there a story, or I'm sure there are many, many stories, but are there any that rise to the, kind of surface for you in thinking about whether it was with a student or faculty staff that particularly resonate with you in being a holy space?
Well, I think I've had a couple experiences that I can reflect on where I think the community really came together. In one, when I was in Bloomington, Illinois, we had it was a Central Catholic school, and we had a family that had 9 children. On the way back from their Christmas vacation, 3 of the 9 were killed in a car accident.
Oh my goodness.
And that obviously brought the whole community together and provided an opportunity for you to take the time in school.
For Sister Mary Margaret, the support of the community was a sacred space, especially in the face of tragedy. Each community that she served in was built on a foundation of relationship, support, and faith, no matter if they had more than 1,000 students or less than 100. And it was this foundation that grounds each school to be able to create sacred spaces as a whole community and through individual moments. Sister Mary Margaret carried on that sentiment as she reflected on her role as an administrator, meeting with an individual student, and reflecting on another tragedy that struck a local community.
I had a conversation with a junior boy who had been sent to my office, and I've always been grateful that our conversation was, can you tell me what happened, and what do you think you could have done differently, and how are we going to approach this in the future? And I've always been so grateful that it was not you're a jerk type of conversation. Because I think in Catholic education, you have the opportunity to really step back and think about who are we and what are we about. And, the reading today on Ash Wednesday was we're ambassadors for Christ. And I think that we can do that, and we have to remember that it's not just a job, but that we're really there because we see it as a ministry, and we see it as a way to encourage the young people, whether they're the little lamb 3-year-olds that I worked with in one school, or the high school kids who are struggling to figure out who they are. I've always tried to encourage them and to build them up and to see where they're coming from, rather than where they should be. Try to remind myself, as well as the faculties that I've worked with, even when I was just a co-faculty member, they're not many adults. They're young people struggling. And so I think that's one of the blessings of Catholic schools. And I think you can stop in the classroom and pray when you need to, even if you're teaching science or not teaching religion at the time. If somebody's having a hard time and you know about it, or the kids say, my neighbor just had this happen or that, you can stop and pray and reflect. One of my experiences when I was in a smaller Catholic elementary school, it was built like an L, and we used to gather. I would set up an Advent wreath or something Lenten, and then we'd put all the little kids on the floor down one wing and the junior high down the floor down the other, and we would have common prayer. And it was enlightening to see how the kids grew over the years. But, you went all the way from pray for my uncle who's in Vietnam to pray for my cat who had kittens. But it was a way for kids to experience how they could really pray and build a relationship with God outside of the church.
And what a beautiful, just a simple yet profound lens of Catholic education. You said who we are and what we are about. Certainly the content in the classroom that teachers are teaching is important,
Right.
but just those moments of prayer, of community, of them accompanying a student struggling with whatever it might be, the
Right.
academic coursework or a family situation, a crisis, whatever it might be.
And I think also the opportunity, I know I have friends who have been in public schools, and they're pretty much, you have to be on this page of the curriculum at this point in time. When I was at Bethlehem Academy, a tornado went through town, caused a lot of damage to the environment, not to our people. And we took a day off as a community and went out, helped clean up the cemetery and the debris around the airport and in neighbors' yards and stuff. It's part of who we are.
Yeah, just being part of the community there.
Part of the community, but also, we're about service.
Wow.
So, yeah, there's just a lot that can go on that you can't do. And like I said, you have to view it as a ministry, not a job. As a ministry that allows you to stop and say, to use the phrase, what would Jesus do? And when we read the Gospels, Jesus was very concerned about what was happening immediately in front of him to the people.
Each school is a ministry, and that comes with the freedom and flexibility to take time to pray, to serve, and to be together in community. From the faculty teaching in the classroom, to the work of the staff, to the board members and students, Sister Mary Margaret continues the conversation on the sacred moments amidst the work of all who are part of the Dominican Catholic school community. You had mentioned, obviously, that you'd served in all these different schools and even in diocesan offices. Thinking about outside the classroom a little bit as maybe an administrator or whatnot, where, leaders are maybe not as student-facing or direct. Any reflections or stories from your time in those moments where it's accompanying a teacher, a first-year teacher, a veteran, or maybe with parents through your roles as an administrator?
I think one of the things that I always enjoyed was having the opportunity to mentor new teachers, to help them to see, first of all, they're nervous as heck, and, so afraid, did I do this right? Didn't I do that right? But I just think also to be able to mentor them, to help them to see that it's not all about their curriculum and what's on paper, but they have to be human, but also walk the fine line of professionalism.
Right.
And that for some is difficult, and that it can be a challenge, to whoever's their administrator or their colleague or their co-mentor in some situations in the schools.
Sure.
I think one of the things I did when I was in Omaha was worked with a lot of school boards. And that was an opportunity to help the members of the board see their ministry, see their role on the board as a ministry and helping to guide policy that would permeate the schools, that would impact their students. But also, I think it helped them to see, I'm just not here to do the finances, or I'm just not here to say, let's choose this uniform, but I'm here to try to say, what do we want our school to be, and how can we make it better? And how do we keep the focus on Catholic education?
Yeah, I mean, the work of the board and the work of all of that, it might be easy to detach from ministry when it's the line item of a budget or, that type of thing. But what a reflection of mission is how we spend our resources, how we allocate personnel and dollars and everything.
It's not, like you said, it's not the bottom line, but it's like, maybe it is the bottom line because we got this group of students, potential students over here who really need us.
Yeah.
And so, how do we adjust that budget to help them grow by enabling them to come into our buildings?
Any thoughts on how to help them create sacred spaces amidst all that we're experiencing, all that their students experience today?
Well, I think if we can continue to work with our teachers so that they see their role as a ministry and as trying to bring the kingdom to life and to peace, just being able to reflect personally for themselves on what's happening. And then, if you're praying, some people have a practice of starting every day with prayer, and some schools do that over the PA. And I think that's one way to bring in intentions.
Sure.
Other people, and in some of those same schools, some teachers always start each class with prayer. And I think one thing that can happen there is that it can be not just a memorized rote prayer, but a real opportunity for what should we pray for today. I know that at BA, the school goes right into the parish adoration chapel.
Yeah, right.
Which actually was part of the convent at one time. And so I know that there are teachers and that themselves spend time there, but there are also teachers that take their classes once a week for maybe only 10 or 15 minutes, just to help build a relationship and to carry that peacefulness and respect back to the classroom.
As our conversation with Sister Mary Margaret concludes, she shares a glimpse into the sacredness of her current ministry today and a final word of advice. All of our guests kind of reflecting on, invite all of our listeners reflecting on as well, where is the sacred being revealed in our Dominican ministries today? So I know you're in a different ministry now. Maybe you could just share a little bit about what your ministry is today with the Dominican Sisters of Cincinnati.
Well, right now I work for the Leadership Council as an administrative assistant. So I see a lot of ins and outs and how hard they're working as we are transitioning from here and there. I think right now our efforts at the Mound are to recreate this new space that we've recently renovated and opening up once again to the local community with a lot of events and activities, and just getting people to know we're still here, even though a lot of our sisters have moved to the east side of the state. And we intend to be here, even though we have announced the deconstruction of a large number of the buildings that are on site. So for people to know we're still here with some of the different concerts and things we had. And it's always kind of amusing. We had a whole series of Christmas concerts the week before Christmas. And people were coming, oh, yeah, we're from Dubuque. We've never been over here.
Oh, God. 15-minute drive down the road.
I know. Yeah. It's like the bridge only goes one direction, I guess.
Yeah.
But so I think, and this is a sacred space. And people who have been here consider this Mound Hill a sacred hill, They're like, can we still come and do the labyrinth? Can we still come and walk your trails? Yes. And
the answer is yes. And for our listeners, too, a little teaser. Later in the season, we have an episode featuring Sister Quincy Howard, who in that episode, we explore in a little bit greater detail some of the transformation here at the Mound, and even some tangible ways that folks can bring school groups or faculty or things of that nature, too. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing your ministries. I will leave the last word to you. Any final thoughts or reflections for our school leaders, our listeners, our board members who may have joined us on the podcast?
Well, I guess I would say when you're really tired and exhausted, sit back and think, I'm making a difference. I'm bringing Christ into a classroom and allowing students the time they wouldn't get otherwise to pause and reflect, and that is so needed in our day and age.
We continue this reflection on our theme of sacred spaces and how we are called to bring Christ into each space of our schools. In this final segment of our first episode of The Torchbearer, we sit down next with Sister Kathleen Phelan, a Dominican sister of Cincinnati. Her more than 60 years as a professed sister has taken her from the classroom to the principal's office to the world of advancement and development, all the while seeing and experiencing the sacred, the presence of God across Dominican Catholic education. Welcome, Sister Kathleen.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Awesome. Perhaps you could share with our audience just your story in Dominican Catholic education. Where have you served? What are some of the good schools that you've served in, and some of those stories?
Well, thank you. I'm sitting right where I've served, right here at Edgewood. I've been a professed Dominican sister for 60 years. I have to take a deep breath when I say that.
Congratulations.
And thank you. And the first 25 of those 60 years were spent in our schools, in our Cincinnati Dominican-sponsored schools, as we called them then, before they became the wonderful world of DVM. I served here at Edgewood High School the first 6 years and taught like history and social studies and political science and those kinds of things. And then I just crossed the state and went to Dominican High School in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, in Whitefish Bay. Had another grand time there for another 6 years. And then I was asked to go into administration and went down to Queen of Peace High School, which is no longer, but unfortunately was a wonderful school, all-girls school down the southwest side of Chicago. And then, as I said, I used to call it the Bermuda Triangle. And then I was asked to come back to Edgewood High School as the president in those days. It was all in one, and served there for 5 years. And then went back to Queen of Peace in Chicago and worked in administration and in development. And then I kind of stayed in financial development for a number of years and went out to Washington, D.C. and up to New York and some of those areas and working in development. For larger social service agencies. So I decided after 25 years I could graduate and move on from school. But I loved teaching. I loved being, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of work, but it was also a very creative time. And I think that's what's key to me is imagination and creativity, and especially at the school. I keep looking up the hill, at Edgewood High School. We had wonderful service projects, and that's always been a part, I think, of the ingrainedness of a smaller city like Madison, where we are known. And last week I was up at the high school at a prayer service that they do quarterly for deceased members of the community, of graduates and our sisters and people who taught there, and so kind of the heartbeat goes on.
Sister Kathleen's work covers nearly every area of school life. Next, we hear Sister as she shares a series of dynamic stories, a debate with a politician in a social studies class, knowing the 150, and how to build community that extends far beyond the walls of the school and even beyond graduation through the ministry of presence. You've been in the classroom, you've been in the administrative office, you've been in development.
Yes.
How have you seen the kind of, maybe there's a particular story of each of those venues, each of those spaces that rises as sacred, that rises as something that elevated your time in there? So maybe we'll start in the classroom, reaching back a little bit and thinking about those.
Well, again, I think it was when I taught at Dominican in Whitefish Bay, it was times of political times and getting students out to go. In those days when the Wisconsin primary really meant something,
sure.
We'd have the students out working with different candidates and, really engaged in civic engagement and doing mock elections and all those kinds of things, because I was a political science teacher.
Yeah.
So.
And with those, did you, was it like the candidate reaching it?
Well, sometimes, sometimes we had the candidates come, or local candidates or state senators, or there was a state representative who came to my classroom once in Dominican, and I knew he was not much in line with, what we were thinking. But anyway, I asked one of the sisters, who was a retired political science university professor, she wanted to come. So I had her come, and I knew she could ask questions that I couldn't necessarily do as the teacher in the classroom.
Sure.
But she was ready, set, go, and had really authentic, wonderful questions.
So to clarify for our audience, right? So you're in a social studies classroom, political science, and you've got a candidate for local office.
Right. Actually, it was a congressional office.
A congressional office.
Right.
Who it sounds like maybe has some political views that are maybe at odds with the mission of the school.
Exactly.
And then you've got this sister who coming in, not yourself.
No.
Posing the kind of questions back and forth.
Right.
How did that go? That's an exciting...
Well, he was a little... I don't think he was crazy about it, but
Sure.
he was very good at answering the questions, and I wanted the students to see. I mean, that's what education's all about, isn't it? To be able to see different viewpoints and be able to ask politely and authentically, some questions that maybe he gave a little thought to after he left our class. I'm not sure, but
wow.
And I was thinking of when I taught at Queen of Peace on the south side of Chicago, where we had 1,500 girls from all over the south side of Chicago.
That was a big campus,
yes,
I remember.
Yeah, and it was. 1,500 girls is a lot when you come from co-ed schools.
Yeah, right.
But Sister Barbara Sheehy, who was the principal at the time, was just an amazing... I mean, that's why I was asked to go there, was to really... She was my mentor, and I went to really
kind of
learn
training to become principal. Okay.
Yeah, I went to the University of San Francisco in the summer times for a master's degree in Catholic school administration. But anyway, what always stuck me with Sister Barbara, other than being a fabulous administrator, and everybody will grant you that, was that because there were so many students, she would say to us, okay, you can't know 1,500 students. I mean, that's just like an impossible expectation.
Yeah.
In a very busy school. But you can know the 150 that you have every day. The students that you have at homeroom and the students that you have in class. I taught, again, I think mostly Middle East and medieval history and American history. But she said, you can know those students.
What a relieving just kind of sentiment, right? Because we all try to do, all of our educators and we try to do everything, and there's simply not enough time.
No.
But yet know the people who are right in front of you.
Right. And it was very important to her to give us that mission. And with the Queen of Peace, we always called them the Women of Peace.
Sure. What a profound statement, too. These are the Women of Peace.
Exactly. Exactly. And I'm right now on Facebook with a group, the Women of Peace. I have a Facebook. I mean, the school's been closed.
Yeah.
Still unfortunately, exists. But that exists. There are a couple thousand people on that Women of Peace.
So you had, goodness, somebody, I wish we had time to dive into all of these, because even just that first moment, but the classroom, at Dominican and elsewhere, and then kind of administrator in training in Queen of Peace. Then you took, as you said, president and principal together as one here
that's
at Edgewood.
What it was then,
Can you tell us a little bit about those?
Well, I was thinking of that, and when I go up to the high school, and so I kind of laugh because I remember walking around I used to come out out of my office, a couple times a day, but I used to do in the afternoon, kind of a stroll around the building, just to see what's going on. Yep. And there was always this little posse of guys who would go with me. They were like juniors. I mean, they eventually graduated, obviously, but it was just they must have smelled me coming out the door, or I didn't wear rosaries, or they must have had some way of hearing me come out. But we would walk the halls and we'd chat and see what's going on. And do we want to go up to the second floor? It was, it's a big school. We'd walk all around and see how things were going. But
they knew you and you knew them, and that relationship is built.
Yeah, I just think that listening is so important. I don't know if you're familiar with StoryCorps. That's on NPR.
No.
It's a wonderful
StoryCorps.
StoryCorps, CORPS. But anyway, there's a book. Now I've lost his name. David Issei, I think, is the author of the book and the head of StoryCorps. Okay. But it's called, the name of the book is called Listening is an Act of Love. Listening is an act of love. And they do a lot of short stories. And, you hear it on the radio, and many times it's just different people, husband, wife, brother, sister, two people who met, down and out many years ago. I mean, it's just wonderful stories, but I just think that's so essential.
When bringing back even though the book obviously much later than your time at Dominican,
right.
When we're back to this scene of the politician and the sister and you as a teacher, listening is an act of love. Each person in that group and the students too all had to listen as we might be defensive or angry or have our own position coming into this. Wow, what a title of a book. I'm excited to check it out, but just a mantra.
Dominican, I remember doing mock elections, every 4 years. And sometimes it was really interesting because the student body parents didn't necessarily reflect I would say, where the Dominican sisters were at that point in time. I'd say it was a different political vent, one might say.
Yeah.
So sometimes it was a good conversation time with the students about, okay, well, we thought it was going to go this way, but this person got elected, in our mock election.
Right.
Maybe different than what we thought was going to happen.
Well, and even how applicable in moments of the signs of our times,
Yes,
where there might be discord and difference in different cities with local governments or national governments, depending on where our mission is.
Exactly.
But listening as a space first, and having the courage to have those conversations too. Sister Kathleen was called to serve in advancement and development as she shared the Dominican story with the wider community.
No, and I think I was thinking of when I was at Edgewood as principal second time around. Of course, I knew a lot of people from the first time around, which was kind of
maybe
fun.
it's a little
now
easier.
They were like, their kids were now coming to school. And now they've all retired. I see them all the time all over Madison and laugh about, what do you mean you're retired? But anyway, I remember imaging that the gym, I don't know if you know the Wilkie gym up the hill. Okay. I must have been doing some kind of a reflection. Maybe it was Catholic Schools Week. I don't remember. But imaging that gym, because I was there when that gym opened. I mean, that's when that very first basketball game that was ever played in that gym.
Sure.
I was there as a very young teacher.
Wow.
But anyway, of imaging that whole gym as a box, and we take off the box, and what do we put in the box? In our year as a Edgewood community, Edgewood High School community at the time, we put in dances, and we put in basketball games and volleyball games, and we put in sometimes sad times because we had some, student killed in a very unfortunate accident that everybody, of course, knew about, and then one of the sisters died, an older sister, so we had a wake there, and so it was the hard times too. But it was also, what else goes in this box? What are you putting in the box? And I had this wonderful image to me of this, that big gym was a box that was our life. And
all the memories and all of the relationships. And
and the fun of doing skits and, crazy faculty, student events and
student
basketball games.
Yeah.
All that craziness, what went into the box. So,
from the ministry of presence with students to raising money for those in need, in this final segment, Sister Kathleen offers a few words of wisdom. You said a lot of time in development and advancement. A lot of our leaders are, in spaces that are not as student-facing. How has that realm been sacred for you, or how have you seen the sacredness in the development advancement side of things?
Well, I think I went into development advancement at the time and that's the way a lot of people were going into development then, was kind of out of administration, because you knew that for the mission of a school, for the good of the school, obviously you had to have the finances. And for us, I think it was always, as Cincinnati Dominicans, it was always important that we have the arts in our school. I remember when I was here at the high school and we were buying some bells for bell choir, I was like, do we have to get the biggest bells? Because we're trying to make a budget. Like, can we start with the little tiny bells and work our way up to the big bells? But the arts have always been important to us, and whether it's visual arts or musical arts or, the fine arts up at the high school are fabulous.
When I think of, having the blessing to see so many of the different Dominican schools, even across different congregations, the sizes of the auditorium, like the value on the arts is present across all of them as a way of expressing all the gifts that we have.
So that was, I think, very important that we raise funds to do those things, and also to make it as affordable as possible. I mean, I can tell you all kinds of stories, which I'm not going to, but of students whose families couldn't afford tuition, and that I knew a lot of students in the school who couldn't afford money and the tuition, and we had other people who would help us do that, one-on-one, or nobody ever knew anything, and that was,
still made it work.
Yeah.
And what might have seemed like a new issue, or an issue that was, we'll say, some many years ago, and how present that issue still is. And
of course. So how do we help students do that? How do we raise funds to help those now it's the Mazzucchelli Fund or whatever the scholarship fund is.
Yeah, the
but
school
that
one.
we want students to be able to be a part of our community.
Well, and it's such an expression, that advancement development work, an expression of the mission and sharing it, as much as the work of the campus ministry department
for sure.
or the work of the theology department or any other department.
Exactly, and the folks in development have to know the school. And I think anybody who is any part of a school has to have a passion for teaching and a passion for students and a passion to be beyond their classroom. I mean, I loved my classroom, but I also know how important it is that you're at the basketball game or that you can't go to everyone unless you're the coach.
Right. Yep.
But you've got to be there. And the volleyball game or the concert this weekend or the play or how important that is to students.
The ministry of presence.
Exactly.
Of just expressing far beyond any lesson taught.
Exactly. And as you well know, students know who really cares. And
whether it's for the teachers, going back to your earlier parts in your experience in the schools, administrators, or more that advancement development, is there any particular wisdom you'd love to share with our teachers? You kind of hinted at it a little bit, being present and the attending the games.
Oh yeah, I think presence. I think imagination is really important. Creativity is really important, and I just think helping students find a place in the arts that they feel comfortable with, or they can excel, or if it's poetry, or if it's going for a walk. What's the beauty reading little Mary Oliver today?
Yeah.
I was thinking of I don't know if you've been to Camp Weehawkee.
I have heard and met so many people who have. I have not.
Well, when you get there,
for our listeners too, Camp Weehawkee, northern Wisconsin. Help me with the town.
I can't help you with the town.
But maybe it's several hours north of Milwaukee.
Yes,
4 or 5 hours north.
Up north, as one would say.
Yep.
Yeah. It's up north.
Yeah.
I really haven't been there too much. When I was in leadership for a while, congregation leadership, and I went there to visit as a council member. But I was delighted because there were so many different things for activities, for it's all girls, but for whether it was horseback riding or swimming or painting or dancing or out on the lake, which I love. But I just thought this is so amazing that students who probably don't do boo, maybe in a school setting, have this wonderful opportunity to do pottery, to try something and to try it. What's wrong with trying,
Well, and you're taking me back. I'm not an artist in any way, except in stained glass.
Really?
And it was Dominican High School.
Wow.
Mary Gare.
Sure.
Mary Gare. I taught stained glass from her.
Exactly.
And still to this day, I can make stained glass just with anybody and got all the supplies. And I would have never been exposed to it had it not been for Mary Gare.
And what a fabulous teacher.
Yeah.
Oh. And you think she taught stained glass.
Yep.
Where
else are you going to get stained glass but a Dominican high school? So that's a great, whether it's a dance studio, whether it's a pottery swim, whatever it might be.
And what a chance to try out something.
Right.
And a lot of students never have that opportunity.
Oh, goodness.
But it's that relationship, which is very important to us, to all Dominicans, but, at the heart of ministry is relationship is so important to Cincinnati Dominicans.
Well, it's funny you say that. We were just sitting earlier on a podcast with Sister Margaret O'Brien, who said the exact same thing.
Yeah, that's
relationship is the heart of ministry. So kind of hit it twice.
Yes, exactly. Well, it is very significant to us, but
definitely.
But it brings this little marching crew into my box.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. What a great metaphor too. So. Well, thank you so much for joining the Torchbearer podcast. But perhaps more importantly, thank you for your vocation, in serving all of these different schools and in the ways you continue to serve. And as we celebrate you and all of our Dominican sisters during this Catholic Sisters Week, again, March 8th to the 14th.
Thank you.
So.
To conclude this first episode of the Torchbearer podcast, we welcome back Sister Mary Margaret Murphy as she offers a special prayer written just for this podcast, and it is entitled The Prayer of the Torchbearer.
O God of unending light, you have called us to carry the flame. Make us courageous torchbearers, unafraid to step into the darkness of our time, confident that no shadow can overcome your light. Deepen our faith and trust in the fire of the Holy Spirit we carry. We know the flame that illuminates our path is not of our own brilliance, but it is your living flame, the fire of the gospel within us. As torchbearers, may our words, our witness, our lives unite the world to follow you until every heart burns with your love, every path is warmed by hope, and every horizon glows with the gospel. We ask this prayer in the spirit of Saints Dominic and Catherine, and through Christ, our Lord and our light. Amen.
Amen. Dominican Veritas Ministries would like to thank our featured guests, Sisters Margaret O'Brien, Mary Margaret Murphy, and Kathleen Phelan. We would also like to extend a special word of thanks to Sister Colleen Settles for building the connections to make this episode possible, and to Edgewood Campus School, the Dominican Sisters of Sinsinawa, and the Sinsinawa Mound for providing the space for these interviews. We invite you to join us next for episode 2, entitled The Dominican Hour, where we will continue our exploration of our season-long theme of sacred spaces by looking at how time is sacred, especially in the context of a busy school day and school calendar. In episode 2, the Torchbearer sits down with Beth Odom, Dominican Associate, and the Director of Dominican Catholic Identity at St. Agnes Academy, St. Dominic School in Memphis, Tennessee, as we explore the topic of the Dominican Hour. Until then, we invite you to learn more about Dominican Veritas Ministries on our website, dvmop.org. I'm your host, Nate Friday. Thank you for listening, and in the spirit of St. Catherine of Siena, may you be who God meant you to be, so that you can pick up your torch and set the world on fire.